Thank you for joining us on Finding God in the World of Video Games, where we're going to take a deeper look into a rising trend in some of our most anticipated video game releases, that of celebrity stunt casting. While this isn't seen quite as often in our video games, you see it very frequently in television and movies where, in order to inject life or to bring in a new fan base, we'll often see celebrities from different, whether it's actors, actresses, musicians, different areas than what that particular show or movie series would have normally targeted, and they're brought in order to get extra eyeballs, spike the ratings a little bit. Now we're seeing this in some of the video games that are coming up in the near future and very anticipated 2020 releases. Death Stranding, very anticipated 2019 release. The widely recognized Norman Reedus from The Walking Dead and a variety of other projects. It's featured very prominently in every single ad for this title. Ghost Recon decided to take a very similar approach, snapped up Jon Bernthal, which you probably recognize from not only Walking Dead but also Punisher and a lot of other film and TV projects as well, as a featured primary character in their next game. And obviously, unless you've been living under a rock, Keanu Reeves is essentially the face of the new CyberPunk 2077 game. That's probably the biggest story that came out of E3, was seeing Keanu Reeves, who is going to be a very, very large character in this upcoming title. These voices, their likenesses are going to dominate the posters and display cases for these games, and that recognizable image is going to be used to drive awareness for either these new IPs or reinvigorate the original concept for some of these games. This isn't really a problem, and it's not terribly new to the video game industry. We've seen this happen before. The problem is these celebrities are unlikely to have any actual impact on the quality of the game. And really, this is more of a reflection on our fascination with the images associated with these celebrities and how that impacts our perception of the overall product. Now, with these three aforementioned titles, I believe that these are going to be quality titles regardless of whose name or face is plastered all over it. But a lot of times we'll make a purchase on a variety of different areas of life. For example, you have something at the grocery store and you might see something that looks great on the box, but when you get it home, it's totally different than what you anticipated. Totally unrelated note, if you ever see peanut butter chocolate blasted shred cereal in your grocery aisle, walk away, leave it alone. It's the worst, and I'm saying that as a cereal aficionado. You've been warned. Don't try it. It's garbage. And now it just sits there rotting away in your pantry or anything else that you buy in your fridge, your freezer, and slowly crawls towards its expiration date because there's a huge difference between what you thought you were getting and the reality of what's inside. Oftentimes we have a very similar predicament with the way that we perceive the God that we serve, because he often reveals himself in a very different way than we were expecting. We have a concept of what he's supposed to act like based on our backgrounds and our upbringing, but what is in the box is very rarely going to match up to the image that we built for ourselves in our minds. And the reality is, we can get caught up in some stunt casting of our own as we can attempt to, unfortunately, remake God in our own image. This has happened numerous times throughout the Bible, and we'll throw up some of the verses here just for you to reference. Two of the most popular times that you will see this happen: once in the Old Testament, Moses has just finished leading the people of Israel out of Egypt. He's up on the mountain getting the 10 Commandments from God, and during this time period, while he's up on the mountain, the people decide that they're tired of waiting. This isn't what they signed up for, and instead they decide to make their own golden cows to worship and say that these golden cows are what delivered them from the land of Egypt. That seems a little odd. Most of us, when we're in a position where I'm really tired of waiting on God, we don't necessarily say, I'm gonna just make some kind of metallic version of my favorite livestock and I'm gonna decide that's my God instead. It sounds kind of preposterous on the surface, but in the real world, there's ways that we do this very same thing. We can become impatient with the speed that God is working and decide to follow a different image of God, the one that we would prefer to serve, the one that kind of aligns a little bit more with our expectations, rather than the one that actually exists. We see this exact same thing happen with Jesus in the New Testament during the triumphant entry, in which during the last week of his life, he's having this huge parade. People are chanting his name, calling him the King. And this exact same crowd in less than a week is going to be chanting, "Crucify him," and demanding his blood. What happened? In both of these examples, we see that people will faithfully follow and celebrate God right up until the point where he stops acting and behaving the way that they wanted. And then they turn on him and replace him with something that will be a little more obedient, more compliant, more predictable. I believe we're all guilty at many times in our lives of replacing God with what we considered a better casting choice. And if you don't believe me, trust me, just think of the times that we know what God has commanded us to do, either in the Bible or through hearing a message, and then we seek out an alternate answer from a friend, a loved one, or a fellow believer until we get the response that we really wanted to hear. When we reshape our beliefs based on what the current culture tells us is true about God, instead of what the God who never changes has already told us about himself in the Bible. He is unchanging, regardless of how many times we're tempted to put a different face on him to make him more appealing to others. I hope that this challenges you the same way it challenges me to embrace God exactly as he is, instead of trying to put him into a box that fits our desired representation of him to make him more palatable for others. He is not some inert idol or a genie's lamp to be rubbed whenever we need a wish granted, and he's certainly not here trying to win any People's Choice Awards. He is the God of the Bible, the same yesterday, today, and forever. He cannot and will not operate under the constraints of a little box that we want to keep him in. He requires complete control over every aspect of our lives, and he must exist as he truly is in all points of our world. He defies all of our descriptions and our needs to quantify him. And when asked his name, he simply chose to identify himself as I am. His decisions on right and wrong are not opinions, they are ironclad. And he isn't available any other way.